What's up, guys? Today we're going to be looking at the Object 257, the Tier 9 Russian heavy tank. Came out at the same time with the Object 430, the 430U, the 268 version 4, and somehow this attracted all the attention of being the most OP tank ever, but somehow it really didn't become that. And to find out why that is, let's look at the armor. So for a change, we're using the live armor model because this tank has some weird angles that you really kind of need the live armor model to. If you don't know how that works, is that basically the armor colors are dependent on the penetration of the gun you have. So this gun has 248 pen, so the colors match that. So when you're not angling this, the front is really easy to pen, the lower plate at least, and the hull is quite high up on this tank as well as with the elevated suspension. So lower plate is usually pretty easy to get on this tank, and also frontally you have the cupolas, which are pretty big, much bigger than on tier 8 tank called the Defender, more like tier 8.5, I guess. And the roof is also an overmatch, and like you see, the turret is kind of elevated towards the back, so the roof overmatch zone is actually not that hard to hit. You do need to have 90 plus millimeter guns, so tier 8s cannot get the overmatch, but they still can shoot the cupolas, of course. The problem or the trouble starts when you start angling this tank, and if you have a good amount of pen, like we have on this tank, 248, will be generally enough to pen this, no matter what the angle is. You will have at least one or sometimes even two plates that you can pen reasonably easily. The problem begins again if you don't have that much pen. You're gonna have to struggle. Tier 8s with less than 200 pen pretty much can go fuck themselves once they meet this, and this guy is showing their sides, because effective armor on this is really hard to get below 200, and depending on the angle it can be over like 220. So if you're in a lower tier tank, it is quite easy to just, you know, not have a chance against this tank. Also with elevated suspension, you got the ricochet zone, so you cannot track this tank and do damage at the same time, which is also really bad if you're in a lower tier tank or a light tank. You can't track this, do damage, and try to circle him. You have to track him and then try to circle and do damage with every second shot, and that probably will end up in you dying and this guy laughing away. Also note that from the side, the turret is actually much better than from the front. As you can see, the side armor is pretty fucking ridiculous. The side of the cupola, for the most part, is much better as well. The roof overmatch is much harder to hit in an angle, and the cupola, the top part of it, is still a weak spot, but this tank actually has better side of the turret armor than the front, unless your enemies have like 270 pen or something like that, where they can pen the side of the cheek pretty easily. But the side armor on the bottom part, it shows up green, but it's all ricochet, all auto bounce, too steep of an angle. Then again, if you are fighting tanks against or tanks that have 15 centimeter guns, or I guess it has to be 122 plus, I believe. I don't think 122s will overmatch this. Yeah, the 45 millimeters, they will not overmatch with 122. So 15 centimeter guns will just overmatch the entire side, no matter what the angle is like. So side scraping against big guns is a bad idea in general, not only because while side scraping this plate is going to be reasonably weak, but also because all of this is going to be an overmatch. So that's something to think about, and that is pretty much all there is to say about the armor. But I'm not done mumbling yet, just comparing the stats with the T10 before we get into too much action. So we start off with 1900 hit points, view range of 390, top speed forwards 50, backwards 15, power to weight 15.45, tank traverse 41.71, effective traverse slightly better, terrain resistance though worse than on the T10, and the gun is worse in pretty much every way. DPM of 2117, penetration 248, reload of 12.47, aiming time of 2.8, accuracy 0.38, and the substats are the same apart from on the turret traverse, where they're slightly worse. It is APCR standard, so gets better shell velocity by quite a bit, but obviously the APCR downside is the worst pen against angled armor. Now let's talk about the game. And we're once again on Erlenberg. 357 is kind of a must really to have a really good game in this tank. Like I said, this tank really has armor when you're fighting against lower tiers. Sure, it bounces higher tiers as well, especially if they don't aim well, but this tank really only shines against lower tiers, because the effective armor of 220 is not really going to get you far when your enemies have 240 pen or so. But like you saw so far, we have not taken any damage from two tanks that are much higher pen than the 220, so you can get lucky, but it is really not that much up to you. We are playing this heavy tank flank, as you probably noticed by now, and I kind of gonna fuck off because I don't want to fight a Heat SD1 and a Turtus on that side. So instead, I'm gonna go here and fight some lower tier shit that might have a harder time spanning me. This Centurion is really out of place and really in the way, but yeah, we're gonna have to drive around him, I suppose. So the ISM with around 220 pen, the RMx with 230, WZ and the Turtus with pretty high pens again, so not the best fight here for me, but as long as we do this fast, we might be able to get away with it. I kind of want to angle out that WZ so he can fuck off a bit better. And he does that, and now the Turtus is blocking his own gun with the ISM and is denying himself from shooting as properly. So that's a pretty weird play he's making, but hey, I'll take it. I'll shoot his weak spot from 2 meters away, and it should be a pretty easy pen. And he's just shooting my outer track. It's obviously not really going to do anything for him. Now he picks up a much better angle. I should have probably repaired the track here, but I don't, and now I fuck up my shot as well. The playstyle basics of this are pretty damn simple. You try to watch out from enemies with high pen. You try to not really aim for too long, and try to prevent your enemies from really zoning in on your weaknesses, because you almost always have a weak zone that they can pen. If you play against lower tiers, then you just W key and shit on all of them. That's pretty straightforward. And that's pretty much what this tank is. It's a license to shit on lower tiers with bad pen, but it does not do all too hot against higher tier heavy tanks, higher tier TDs, or TDs in general. And even a tank like this RMx with the 230 pen has a pretty reasonable chance to pen my front no matter what angle I give to him. So yeah, while this tank is not good for the game, it didn't come out overpowered, so I don't really care too much. And you can counter this quite easily by just pressing 2 key on most tanks you're fighting. If you're in a tier 7 though, must avoid this shit as much as you can, because you're really gonna struggle with some of those tier 7s, especially in mediums or you know, with 150 pen, with 170 premium pen. You pretty much can't do anything to this, which is of course very annoying, but yeah, I mean, what is there to say? Tank for idiot-proof tank that isn't overpowered. I mean, not my favorite thing to play or play against, but again, it didn't actually come out overpowered, so whatever. So far though, we did 3,334 damage, blocked 930. The enemy team is capping with 3 dudes, so they might actually pull off this cap, and we might actually just flat out lose with the cap, but then you probably wouldn't be seeing this game on YouTube, so that probably is not gonna happen. Spoiler alert. And now, you know, some good old esports. Never forget about esports on Redshire. Gotta have to happen every game. We're still getting capped, and luckily, you know, the ISU had more of a brain in his head to go into the cap circle than the Panthera, which, you know, it's better than somebody actually tried to do that. The Panthera had shitload of health. He's just not very smart in the head to prevent us from losing. But ISU does the job. RD resets the cap, and now we can farm some more damage before this game ends. The 263 obviously is gonna have a really easy time penning me. If I give him my hull, and even in the turret he can get my roof or the cupolas quite easily. But I'm gonna try to bait him out, because, you know, we do have the hit points to take one shot. I'm kind of thinking about shooting the IS-3, but yeah, I'm just trying to bait out a shot from the 263, but he actually nails it, so we're not too happy how that went. But the pattern does bounce, so we have something going for us. The angle I was in was a rough hull shot for him, because we're kind of using the ridge to increase our armor effectiveness. Still a bit lucky, of course. He could have just been shooting gold, or could have just penned me there. Wouldn't have been too surprising. Now the ISU picks up the 263, so we can get some more shots into the IS-3. The gun handling on this is not great. It's not like awfully bad, but it definitely is worse than the T10, and that's pretty much the summary of this tank. It is kind of worse than the T10 unless you're playing against tier 7s and some tier 8s, where this tank is just invulnerable and you can do whatever the fuck you want. Also, the lack of pen, the 248 pen, which is not high to begin with, and also the fact that it's APCR will mean that you're gonna struggle to pen stuff like E100's lower plates, and you know, generally angled plates of heavy tanks are going to be tougher for you to pen than for something like, say, T10. Now they can't even try to be funny there, but we prevented him from doing anything silly. Now T44, unless he's shooting premium, he can, yeah, he's not really gonna have much of a chance. He is going for the tracking, and you know, props to this guy for at least trying until the end. I don't give him my side here, but the beauty about this is that he still shoots my front, and now we should be just able to finish him off, but of course we're not. I don't really know where that shot hit. I mean, the turret bounce was already there. I think I hit him. I had to hit him in the turret really to bounce there, so we get robbed of our last kill, but it really doesn't matter. Alright, so here's the end plate. Ace Tanker, 5,784 experience with the double. Steel Wall, High Caliber, and Confederate. 3 kills, picked up 5,597 damage. Assisted for 27 and picked up 3 kills. Base experience of 1,285. So yeah, not the most impressive game, and this tank also is definitely not what people expected it to be. It is definitely not the most OP thing ever. It is annoying to play and annoying to play against, but if you have high pen, you just pen this like cheese, and it is not really that big of an issue for you. Then again, if you're in a tier 7 medium, there's almost nothing you can do against this, even with premium ammo. So a shitty design, but once again, it's not really OP, so, I mean, I'll take something like this over a Defender anytime, and this is a tier 9, so, yeah. The weirdest part about this tank is that it was kind of brought in the IS-7 line to represent the gameplay more of the IS-7, but it really doesn't, because the turret on this tank is not really all that great, so you can't really play good hull down like you can with the IS-3, with the IS-7, or with the T10, which was in this place before. So it's kind of weird addition to the tech tree, but again, it's not the it's all right. I mean, it's all right. It's all right of a tank. There's not really much to say about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this mediocre review, and I'll see you on the next one.